you said a little bit of acting. Would you consider acting if a part came along where it was a singer? I mean, it was a country singer, and they needed a character who could actually sing and do the part. Would you consider that? Would you like to do that?
Yeah, absolutely. I've always liked acting as well. I like entertaining. I've never done any musical theater, but I did, some extra work and some small film parts. And I definitely would consider it. I think at this point in my life, I found it's like so much of my energy has gone into music, but definitely if the right opportunity came along, I would love to just explore a different part of the entertainment industry and work on that skill set a little bit more.
I want to welcome you to another episode of Media from the Heart. My name is Ruth Hill, and yes, I'm your host, and I am back. Welcome to 2023. Today, I have a very special episode, as always. My first musician, Melissa Endean is her name, and I really believe you're going to love this conversation. I know I always say that, but this is a really special one. She talks about motherhood. She talks about her dreams. She talks about her unusual connection to Johnny Cash. And this girl, man, I tell you, she's got it together. Beautiful young lady, beautiful mother, and one who is truly making a splash in the music world, even as we speak. So sit back, relax, and enjoy my conversation with Melissa Endean. Here we go. I want to welcome you to another episode of Media from the Heart. My name is Ruth Hill, and I'm your host. And today I know I always say I have a very special guest, but she is a very special guest, and she's a musician. I just love that. Melissa Endean, so nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you as well, virtually.
Yes. Oh, well, I'm so glad Zoom has just become like the way to do all these things.
Yeah, it's amazing.
I don't know. I don't know what we did before. It was a lot harder before, I know. And
yeah. This one nice thing that came out of COVID is the ability to work with people all over the world on your phone.
Exactly. I love that too. Now, for those who may not be aware of who Melissa is, I wanted to just read a little bit about her to introduce her. Hailing from the interior of British Columbia, Melissa Endean was raised in a family of professional musicians that included a grandfather who once toured with the legendary Johnny Cash. From the time that she was old enough to talk, Melissa Endean was on stage making her first public appearance as a country vocalist at just 8 years of age. Melissa released her first EP at just 18 years old as a part of the family band, the Endean Sisters, to immediate success. Melissa is an accomplished performer as well as a songwriter with an immediately recognizable and distinctive vocal style that carries enormous range and power, garnering frequent comparisons to Dolly Parton, Patty Griffin, and Tammy Wynette. And I agree with that. Your voice does sound very much like them. Today, Melissa has achieved notable success and has worked with many prominent names in the industry. Up until 2015, Melissa was an active member of the Canadian music scene, where her prolific and eclectic songwriting style garnered the attention of many notable industry professionals. Her full-length indie jazz album, Authentic, topped Eastern Canadian music charts in 2009, and in 2013, she was selected as a finalist for the prestigious Peak Performance Project in BC. In 2014, Melissa further honed her songwriting skills by writing and releasing the 6-track electronic EP Enlightened under the stage name of, is it Ela? Is that
Ayla?
Ayla. Okay, thank you. Which was co-written and produced by several people. I won't go into all of their names. However, following this project, Melissa was forced to let her music career take a backseat in order to focus on adjusting to life as a new young mother. Early in 2022, we get to now, after a 5-year hiatus from the music industry, Melissa went back to her roots as a country musician and re-entered the music scene with an unrestrained and unapologetic passion that is reflected in a collection of gut-wrenchingly honest and emotionally pure tracks that speak to the potential of neo-traditional and outlaw country. Within a few short weeks of re-entering the music industry, she was invited to studio by award-winning Nashville producer Dean Miller. Her new EP, set to be released later this year. Is that true still? It's going to be still later this year?
We're doing it single by single, but
Okay,
we're gonna have more tracks coming out this year. Yeah.
sounds good. Okay, I just wanted to make sure. Um, will feature a number of raw, gritty, and deeply vulnerable tracks that highlight the full extent of Melissa's songwriting skills and will include the single release, Till We're Dirt, a dark yet catchy song that pushes the boundaries of country music for a completely unique sound. The highly anticipated EP will also include the feature track, God's Gonna Cut You Down, a traditional American folk song made famous by Johnny Cash. All right. So, and also it says that that particular recording was recorded live at the world famous Cash Cabin Studios in Hendersonville, Tennessee. And you can be heard playing one of Cash's famous Martin guitars on that particular
Yes.
one. That's pretty cool. Well, and I know that was a lot, but I'm glad because the wonderful thing is a lot of my listeners, a lot of my viewers, when they tune in, they're going to say, who is this person? And this gives us
Right.
that gives us a really good understanding of who you are. Now, first of all, I want to say I think it is amazing. You started young, you had all the success, and then the fact that you chose to say, okay, I'm a mother, I'm going to take a step back for a few years.
Yes. Yes.
That is amazing. And Melissa, I just want to commend you for that. I hope that I hope you feel very supported. I think our culture is more supportive, but sometimes people still think, what, you took time off to be a mother? No, but I think that's amazing.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Yeah.
that was a good choice. And I'm a single mother, so I totally understand where you're coming from.
Yes.
And that's amazing. So, but then the great thing is you made the decision. So what is it why did you decide now was the right time to come back?
Well, when I first had my son, I wanted to focus on just being present and being there for him. And it was a big adjustment. And at that time, I really couldn't see like how I could juggle the two. So much now of the industry is touring based if you want to have financial success as a musician. And I just couldn't see how that could work with the little one in tow. And I just really wanted to be there and kind of focus on him. And then I actually had my second daughter in 2020, and I was really missing it, and things were a bit more stable in my life at that point. And I thought, okay, I think I can make this work. I had a lot of support of family and friends, and I wanted to re-enter in the industry in 2020. And then, of course, we all know what happened in 2020. So I ended up kind of hitting the pause button on it for another couple of years. But I think what really prompted me to kind of re-enter it was it's just so much a part of my life. I mean, I grew up, I was put on a stage at a really young age, and I didn't really know who I was outside of music. And I found that our lives were just full of it anyways. My son, I'd put him on a piano and we'd sit there and make up songs together from the time he was super little. And I missed it. It's just such a passionate part of who I am. So I just wanted to go back to it.
Yeah, I think the pandemic put a lot of things on hold for people. That was that year. It's like we had all those plans, and then evidently, as they might say, the universe had other ideas.
Absolutely. Yes. Sure did.
Yeah. All right. So yeah, the pandemic definitely put things on hold. So I totally get that. But that's good that maybe in some ways the pandemic helped you to prepare so that when you came back, you were able to come back full force, because it seems like that's what you've done.
Yeah, I definitely I re-entered with a bit of a different mindset. At first it was very much of, oh, I'm just going to do this. It doesn't really matter if I have success in it or not, or if I just wanted to write and create. And I felt like I had more songs in me that I had been writing and I really wanted to share with the world. But I think, which is kind of true for any artist, is pre-pandemic, and part of it was probably also maturity on my part too. But yeah, pre-pandemic, I had a lot of like self-doubt and kind of confusion in the direction I wanted to go as an artist. So I released things all over the place. And I think part of it speaks to just how I write. Like, I am a songwriter at my core. I like to write, probably more than any other aspect of the music industry. I love to write music. And so I didn't really have a clear sense of direction, but then once the pandemic hit, and then again, also like just maturity of style and sound. Yeah, I just found that it was a little bit easier to be honest in my music and in my songs, and not really hold back of what I was writing about or hold back who I was as an artist. I just felt more confident in it.
Yeah. Well, that's cool. Well, it's amazing that, I mean, it's like once you entered it, and I mean, I started seeing all these posts. I mean, I could not keep away from, I kept seeing, and it's like that. It was like, I was so glad when your PR company reached out to me, because I was already thinking, I want this person on my podcast, because
Oh, amazing. That's very cool.
I was intrigued very much, and I was like watching, it was like regularly, like, okay, here she is. It's like, and I had to look up who you were, and because I live in Washington State, so I don't
Oh, okay.
live terribly far, it's kind of the Seattle
Yeah.
area, and so I don't live too far from Vancouver, and so I've got lots of friends up there in Vancouver, and you started at a very young age with
Yeah.
music. Of course, you came from a musical family. What is your earliest music memory, if we go way back?
Oh, my earliest musical memory, I definitely can remember. I think I was about 3 or 4, standing on the coffee table at my grandparents' house, and we had, I don't know who they were, but they had a bunch of guests over, and everyone was sitting drinking tea, and my grandma saying, "Liz, get up there and sing Dolly Parton." And so I remember standing on the coffee table singing "Why'd You Come In Here Looking Like That" by Dolly Parton. So that's my earliest childhood memory.
Oh, that's cute. I can, oh boy, 3 or 4 year old singing that song. Okay.
Yeah.
That's great though. Oh my. Oh wow. Well, what a cool first memory to have. I mean, I'm also a musician. That's actually what I went to school for, was music. And
Oh, amazing.
so yeah, music is one of those things that was always a part of my life growing up too. I think I think my earliest memory was singing the Old Rugged Cross with my dad, and I was like 2 or
Oh,
like that. And so I had this,
yeah.
and they used to have like a cassette recording of it. It was so funny. It was like,
Yeah, yeah.
that's those days when we had cassettes.
Yeah.
And we had those little tape recorded machines. Yeah, yes, I remember.
Yes, yeah.
Okay, yeah, yeah, you get it. I know some people who are younger probably don't, but
Yes, yeah.
yeah.
I definitely remember making little radio shows on like a little tape recorder set, recording it, and yeah.
Those were always so fun. I hear, oh my goodness. So so you actually released your first album at the age of 18, right?
Yes, yeah.
So and that was, so you were a part of the Sisters Act. Like how many sisters are we talking here?
I have 2, so I'm in the middle, and I have an older sister and a younger sister. And so we grew up. Everyone in my family performed. My grandfather performed regularly as a musician, so we were, encouraged from a very young age to do it. And probably, yeah, around the age of, I think my youngest sister was 10, and we joined something called the Kamloops Youth Performers, and we did a lot of showcasing around, we went to Calgary Stampede, Marymount Music Festival, just around the interior, different music events. So the 3 of us would sing together. And I remember I was probably 13 at the time, and I was really not happy that we were known as the Endean sisters. So there was a lot of really strange band names, because I wanted to give us an edge. Yeah, but yeah, the Endean sisters is what we were known as in our little hometown, and we did our little 3-part harmonies, and yeah, sang together. But my other 2 sisters did not choose to pursue a career, and so eventually it got to a point where I was like, come on, like, let's do this. And they were like, no, Melissa, we don't want to. So then I ended up pursuing it on my own.
There you go. So songwriting, you said, is something that's, of course, I mean,
Mhm.
we know you sing, and
Mhm.
also, what instrument you play? Guitar, and what other instruments?
I play guitar, piano. I dabble on others, but I'm fairly proficient on guitar and piano.
Okay, that's good. And then you write songs as well. You said songwriting is
Yeah.
something that you really, really love. So when did you Do you remember when you wrote your first song?
I do. I mean, I wrote my first like decent song probably when I was like, around 18, 19, that I was confident to perform in public. But I do remember writing a song when I was about 6 that was about some underwater octopus that I can't really remember, but it was probably quite bad.
There you go. Oh no, that's great though. So with with songwriting, do you
Mhm.
have a process? I know I've talked to many musicians. There's all sorts of different processes when it comes to songwriting. Is there a certain way that you go about writing these songs?
Sometimes. I just actually started working with a producer here in Canada, and he is a very well established songwriter in Canada, and as well as a producer. And so he's been kind of coaching me and mentoring me in the songwriting process. So it's how I'm approaching it now is quite different from how I historically approached it. Um, so one of the things he actually said to me recently was like, "Tell me if this sounds familiar to you. You're standing in the shower, you get a burst of inspiration, you get a line, and you go rush, you grab a guitar and you try and write the song around it." And I was like, "Yeah." And he was like, "Don't do that." So he's kind of coaching me through like a different way of writing that I'm having a bit of a hard time with, because it is very much my process to, have a burst of inspiration and then try and write around it. Um, and then what ends up happening within that process is that it either comes together, for me anyways, it either comes together really quickly or it doesn't. And then the pieces that don't come together, if it's a song that doesn't come together quickly, I have now just started looking at ways to actually kind of look at it more strategically and give it a bit more structure, and then work on it the same way I would have, like maybe a university paper,
Mhm.
which is really hard as an artist to do. But I think I think it does show maturity in your songwriting to look at it more as like a craft, as a skill that can be honed. And there is natural creativity within it, but it is hard because I think we're very conditioned, especially here in the West, that creativity just is kind of this burst of inspiration, and the mad painter just splattering paint on a canvas, and that it just comes like that. But I think there's a lot more, yeah, like skill and development that comes behind it. So I'm trying to focus on that currently, but it does pull away from what my natural process would have been.
Well, but I think you're right. That does show maturity because I'm not a songwriter, but I'm a writer, and I know
Right.
it can be that thing of, oh, I'm just going to write when I have a burst of energy, but
Yeah.
or inspiration, like all of a sudden, oh, I have this great idea, I'm going to sit down and write it. But as I've gotten older and I've learned that you actually discipline yourself, and it's like, okay, I'm going to
Yeah.
sit here and write, and I'm just going to write, and I'm going to make sure that I get to this certain point before I stop, rather than, okay, I don't feel like, I wrote for 30 minutes,
Yeah.
done, but instead of, no, I'm going to keep on pushing through. There is something to be said for that. So I think both
Yeah.
have merit, but that's great
Yeah.
that you are pushing yourself to look at some other techniques, because I think in the long run, it's going to make you even a better songwriter.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. And I'm definitely finding that already, just in having a bit more of the structure and the discipline, every morning kind of working through exercises and steps to improve my craft. And I'm able to listen to songs in a bit of a different way, probably similar to the way, like now, as I'm sure as a writer, you read through literature and you're like, oh, this is what they did there, this technique. Whereas like just a consumer of those artistic materials, those are pieces that you wouldn't necessarily see. You're just like, oh, that was a really good book, or that was a really good song. And I'm trying not to grapple too much with, well, this is taking the joy out of listening for me, but it's not. But I'm just learning to listen in a different way to things, and learning to create in a different way.
Right. Exactly. Yeah, no, I get it. That's really commendable. I mean, good that you're doing that, because what I remember when I was doing voice was my major,
Mhm.
and so I had that, all of the natural skill, all of that. And
Yes.
but what I remember is that it was so easy to rely on that and not
Yes.
time, because it's, and I remember my professor saying, no, like if you do that, you're actually going to end up falling behind the people that maybe don't have the same natural skill, but they're committed and they keep working and they're
Yes,
gonna
yeah.
actually, yep. And so yeah, so I see that similar principle. So, that's good that you're doing that. And I really do commend you for that.
Thank
Good
you. Yeah.
job. So how are you working this with, so you've got two little ones and
Yes.
novice. How are you making that work?
Sometimes with great difficulty. um, but I thankfully have a very good co-parenting relationship with other parents, and so we don't have, I would say, a traditional co-parenting relationship in that, we don't do 1 week on, 1 week off. We're typically at each other's houses every day, and we spend Christmases and Thanksgivings and holidays together in that sense. So, but because it's almost having that separation has made it a bit easier, because I do have time in a day that I wouldn't necessarily have had. And my kids are both in, my oldest is in grade 1 and my youngest is in preschool. So I have a little bit of time during the day, but it has definitely posed some challenges. This summer, I did a tour of Vancouver Island. And so obviously, I wasn't just, I wasn't going to just not have my kids with me. So I did bring them with me to a number of my shows, which was all sorts of interesting. But I'm grateful I have a lot of family support. And so for a couple of them, my dad actually came with us. Yeah, so it was like this weird little family road trip, and we all just went. And yeah, so it's, I've had to get very creative in how I structure it around them, but it's been really positive so far, and I think it's been really cool for them to see that, just like a different way of that, a different way that you can have a career and as an adult. So
Exactly. Yeah. Well, no, that's great. It's good to hear that you have all that support. I think that makes a big difference,
yes, yeah.
because I wouldn't have made it without being a single mom. I would not have made it without all the family support, all the friend support, all.
Yes.
It's always a challenge raising a child, especially in this day and age. But
Oh,
you have no support. I don't know. I mean, I sometimes hear about, these parents that are like completely on their own and have no support. I have no idea how they do it. I mean,
no. Yeah, even with, the family support and with a good co-parenting relationship, it is not with faint heart.
exactly. That's right. So, wow. Well, my goodness, you have accomplished so much. I mean, I see, it's great about your music career, but in so many ways, I'm more in awe of how you're managing. You've got your music career, you've got you're a mom, and you're a committed mom. There's no doubt about that. And
Thank you.
and then also, it just seems like you have such a positive spirit that just comes across. And
Oh, thank you.
and so you also were evidently taking care of yourself. You're not, it'd be very easy in your position. We hear the stories of people who, they are in music or they're in the arts, and then they don't take care of themselves and they just fall apart. And so it seems
Yeah.
like you are prioritizing taking care of yourself as well.
Yes. And I think that has definitely come out of not taking care of myself and falling apart, and really recognizing that, and really as a mom, especially, that you can't give to anyone if you are falling apart yourself and you're empty inside. So it's again, just like kind of sitting down and creating a song is like discipline and structure. And same with, the music industry in general, right? I found that I almost have to be as disciplined with self-care, which is really hard, because I think at my core, I do tend to be a little bit of a workaholic, and I am definitely a perfectionist, and I set really high standards for myself as a parent and as an artist. And I definitely have had moments where I crash and burn, because I'm setting these really high standards in all these areas of my life that I just can't hold. So it's definitely been a learning process of okay, you recognizing the warning signs of like you're pushing yourself too hard. Now it's time to do those self-care things, and which doesn't come easily. I think definitely for single moms, it's not it's not first nature, that's for sure. So but yeah, I'm definitely getting to a space where I recognize and I'm proficient in it now.
Hey, that's good. No, Melissa, I mean, you are speaking my language. I mean, it's like, honestly, I listen to everything you're saying. It's like, oh yeah, I relate to that totally. Yep, I relate to that. The whole thing about workaholic, pushing myself too much,
Yeah,
not taking care of myself. I mean, all those things. But I have learned, just like what you're saying, you have to take time for yourself.
yes, yeah,
I think we get to that point, like you're saying, you don't take care of yourself and you see what happens, and all of a sudden it's like you realize, okay, I
yeah,
can't keep living like this. This is not sustainable. I have to do something different so that I prioritize taking care of myself. So that
absolutely. Yeah,
and I can honestly see it in you. I mean, I can see that what you're doing is definitely working for you. I'm not going to say it's perfect. You know, it's probably not perfect all the time.
yeah.
Because we're humans and we make mistakes, but I can certainly tell that just even the way you carry yourself, the way that you speak, and just that energy that you give off is
Oh, thank you.
it really comes across. So so I just wanted to say that, and you know, because I believe that, you know, but I'm one who likes to be very positive and encouraging, and so so I say those those things when I genuinely see them, and I do so.
Thank you very much. Yeah.
So, well, you're welcome. I'm very glad to have you here. It is such a joy. I do want to touch on the Johnny Cash connection that
Sure.
that you have, because of course, I mean, Johnny Cash. He was an icon, country music. I mean,
Yes. Yeah.
if you know country music, even all these years after his passing, he is still an icon. And
Yeah.
so, you had a grandfather who toured with him. Is that correct?
Yeah, so my grandfather was in a band called the Thompson Valley Boys, and I think it was kind of early days, like Johnny Cash was just getting established, and so they were the opening band for him on a number of shows. And our little family claim to fame was that Grandpa's band was actually offered a record deal with the same label he was on, which I think was Sun Records at the time, and they turned it down because and I did ask my grandfather once why did you do that? Because of course we all know what all the artists that were on that label, and it just could have changed the course of his life. But and he was a very, very humble man, and he just said, well, I had your dad and your aunt and they were little, and so and so in the band, he was really busy on his farm because they were a farm band. They're a small town farm band. And so he just, he prioritized different things. But that story it really motivated me to re-enter the music industry as well, because he actually passed this April. He passed away from COVID, and I just kind of, and I know he didn't have any regrets at all. But I just kind of had a moment of like, well, grandpa, he chose to prioritize his family over a career, but which is, I think, was the right thing for him to do. But I was like, if there was a way to do both, and then you could give your kids that example as well. Like, I wonder if I could, if I could do both, maybe I should try. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Well, and I was just listening to right before we talked here, I was listening to Folsom Prison, to your
yeah,
cover of Folsom Prison. And I want to say how cool it is that you, as a female country artist, made the decision to cover that song, because that is usually almost exclusively covered by men.
yes,
Like that's just not a song that you don't automatically think, well, I'm a female and I'm going to sing I'm going to sing Folsom Prison. But you made it work, and it fit your voice so well, and it was such a good tribute to the original. So, uh,
thank you.
so what?
Yeah,
Go ahead. Go ahead.
I think, yeah, I part of I the country music industry and the music industry in a lot of ways in general is very much and currently and historically dominated by men. I read an article that came out just a couple years ago that was looking at country music charts, and I think only 16% of charting artists were women. And in the past 5 years, there hadn't been a single female country music entertainer who'd been nominated for Entertainer of the Year. And I've always just loved Johnny Cash. I've loved his image, and just the core and the essence of who he was really came through his music. And spending time in Cash Cabin Studios, you could see that his presence was just kind of everywhere. And I've always felt just kind of an affinity with that. I really, and I think that's why he's so popular. So many people really recognize that kind of internal, deep spiritual struggle. And that really resonated for me. And I just loved the song Folsom Prison. And I think there was a little bit of rebellion too, of like, well, why can't I? Like, there's so much that tells us in the industry that, women can't do this. You're not young enough. You're not pretty enough. You're not blah, blah, blah enough. And I think that's a message we get as women all the time. And so there was definitely a little bit of like, female rebellion that was like, well, I love that song. Why can't I? So I was like, and then of course the perfectionist tendency. And I'm like, well, if I'm going to do that, I'm going to do it at Cash Cabin Studio.
There you go. No, that's great. Well, I think you did a great job. I think that, and I think that although you do have those elements, I can see it being compared to Dolly Parton, Tammy Wynette, though that kind of, but I also believe you are definitely honing your style so that it's like you sound like Melissa Endean. You don't just sound like these other famous country stars. I mean, I know that they always want to make the comparison because, of course,
right? Yeah.
Especially when you're not as well known. But I think you definitely are honing your style. So
Thank you. Yeah. Trying.
Well, and of course, it's a process, because it would not surprise me for for it to be years from now, and as you continue on, that you might sound completely different. I'll give 5 years from now, you might sound very much different than you do now. Maybe not completely different, but you're going to continue to hone that style. And so
yes, absolutely.
Well, Paula, I bet you have some questions, so let me bring Paula on here.
Hello.
Hi.
I always start with saying that I'm not, because we've interviewed, Ruth has interviewed directors and actors, and you're the first singer that just homing on singing. Others act and they sing and stuff like that. So I always try, I'm not from your world. I'm not from Ruth's world. I'm just looking in. And I like to know about the ins, the making of how how you came about. You said you started very young.
Yes.
Were you traveling with your family, not only just your sisters, but like, did your mother and father sing?
My dad always says it skipped a generation for him.
Okay.
But it's interesting because we grew up with very close to my dad's side of the family, and that was my paternal grandfather who opened for Johnny Cash and was very musical. And then interestingly, my mom, she had never known her real dad growing up. But she was also very musical. So she loved playing piano. She always sang in a number of choirs in town. So she very much encouraged that in us as well, because she was quite passionate about it. And then I think when I was in my late teens, maybe 20, we actually found her biological dad, and it turned out that he was a professional jazz musician, and his dad was a professional touring musician and had his own television show. And then when we found that out, it was very much this kind of like family musical event. So my mom was part of Sweet Adeline's. I think I'm saying that correctly. So she actually would travel and do a number of competitions with her show choir and things like that. So it was definitely, it was just like very much a family affair for on both sides.
So were you raised with like a typical education? Like you went to a regular high school, a regular grade school, or were you like homeschooled, or how does
I
that work?
Yeah, so I went to elementary school normally, and then in my high school, like in my early teen years, when I started getting more into um, traveling as my own career as a musician and things like that, um, I did do a bit of online schooling. But we did in between of when I would be in school. Interestingly, I never told anybody that I was in high school with, like, I was a typical teenager. I was, awkward and didn't want to stand out too much, I guess. But yeah, yeah, we went to regular school and everything like that, but would definitely take time off to go do shows and things like that as they came up.
Did you have to, like when we go to school, you have to choose a career, choose a path. Did you have
Yeah.
to choose in high school? I mean, were you always going towards the music? Were you in like musicals in school, or did you go into business or, that type of thing?
Well, I always, I remember from the age of 6 knowing I wanted to be a singer. I wanted to be a musician. I think it was hard to even think of anything else when all the family around me that was what people were doing. I remember watching the Grand Old Opry with my grandparents when I was little and being like, I want to do that. Um, and then when I got to high school, um, I definitely knew that that's what I wanted to do as a career. But interestingly enough, I did take a guitar class. There had a number of music classes that you could take, and I actually like got a really terrible grade in the
Oh,
guitar class. And my teacher actually was just like, "Yeah, you just probably this isn't for you." um, but because at the time I was very focused on singing, like I wanted to develop my skills as a singer, and then I think after that class too, I got very motivated to get better at the guitar so that I could have an instrument. I was probably also because he told me I wasn't good enough at it. Um, but yeah, I didn't do too much within my high school because I think I was just the path that I was taking in terms of music was different than what could be offered by my high school. Like they had band, but band was, classical music and, more, uh, orchestral instruments. But I did attend a program for a number of years. That was it was a school of music. So I attended it's called Kamloops Interior School of Music. And so they did a lot more like vocal coaching and, uh, yeah, just I think it was mostly vocal coaching, but choir and different musical classes and things like that. So I did that for a couple of years, and then just kind of branched out and did my own thing.
was there in that schooling, was there other than just the country music, did you have to do like classical or, I mean, opera or uh, that type also?
Yeah, so I got a lot of vocal training in uh,
Okay.
jazz vocals. So I would go and they'd have like the big orchestra of the jazz songs, and I would be the vocalist and sing for shows and stuff like that around the city. And yeah, and I loved singing jazz. But my heart was always in country music, which there isn't a lot of kind of traditional coaching in country music, which is I think why I loved it so much, because it was so raw of a genre.
I might have wrote it down wrong, but was it I indie jazz? Is that what you said? I don't know what that is.
Yeah, so we called it indie jazz because it wasn't a traditional jazz album. It was kind of a mix of, it had elements of kind of a Nora Jones sound, but then also a lot of elements of just kind of independent music, which I think is just kind of a catch-all these days for music that doesn't fit quite within a commercial framework.
Yeah. Um, wh- when when you were traveling with your sisters,
Yeah.
um, you were still young. So did your mom, I mean, who encouraged you guys, or how did you get started saying, okay, we're going to travel, we're going to, and same thing with schooling. I always worry about the kids,
Yeah.
getting the schooling in while you're traveling, or was it just certain weekends, or was it during school time too, or how does that work?
Sometimes it was a lot of it was during the summer months, so we were off school. A lot of it was on weekends. The odd time we would have things happen during the school week. My mom's a teacher, so that was definitely helpful. So I definitely did a homeschool program at one point in my teen years, that my mom was the teacher of. But it was more, when I started doing it seriously in my teen years, and I was doing some other things at the time too. I was with an acting agency, so I would go and do different gigs for that, within that agency. But it was definitely like I would push really hard, and it was like I'd almost have to beg my parents. I was like, please, let me do this. And um so my dad would definitely, like, he would often drive us to these different events and things like that. But I think having my mom, who was a teacher, was it was definitely helpful, because she always was very much, which I resented, but now also appreciate, was she was like, you have to have a plan B. Like, music is great, do it, have your career, but you need an education. So I did end up staying in school and getting my bachelor's degree in psychology.
I was going to ask that because most every father or mother says you have to have a backup plan.
Yes,
So
yes.
so you did have another field to go into.
Yes, yes. And I think that was helpful for me re-entering the music industry, because I knew that if it didn't succeed, I have something to fall back on. I'll be able to support my kids. I work at, like, I can work as a counselor. So I worked as a child and youth counselor while I was raising my son when he was really little. Um, so I'm thankful that I have that. And also, my mom was just really great at instilling that no matter what, education is, it's never a waste. And it's something that can't be taken away from you. Whereas, the music industry is kind of a fickle lover. It's a lot of this. It's up, it's down. It's whatever the flavor. It can be whatever the flavor of the week is, and it takes a lot of work. And I was talking to. I had an email from Steve Buckingham, who's Dolly Parton's one of her producers, and he described it in a really wonderful way. He said, very few people, I think how he said it was, very few people get through the eye of the needle to make a lasting career in it. And obviously that's what we're all working for and we're all striving for. But I think it is good to know that there is a safety net, especially as a single mom. Like, I wanted to make sure I had a safety net for my kids, just in case.
Yeah, yeah. Um, you said a little bit of acting. Would you consider acting if a part came along where it was a singer? I mean, it was a country singer, and they needed a character who could actually sing and do the part. Would you consider that? Would you like to do that?
Yeah, absolutely. I've always liked acting as well. Like, yeah, I like entertaining. I've never done any musical theater, but I did some extra work and some small film parts. And I definitely would consider it. I think at this point in my life, I found it's like so much of my energy has gone into music, but definitely if the right opportunity came along, I would love to just just explore a different part of the entertainment industry and work on that skill set a little bit more.
I always at the end when we're interviewing the actors or whatever, I always ask them, like, if you were making a classic movie, what would the movie be? But for you, being a singer, if you could act as one famous woman singer, who would that be?
Loretta Lynn.
Okay.
Definitely Loretta Lynn. Yeah. I mean, I love Dolly Parton too. But I've always really admired Loretta Lynn's life and her career path, and just how unapologetically trailblazing she was. And and just she was so authentically herself. I think a lot of people, when we enter the industry, we approach, a lot of people, you approach it as a business and, create a brand. But I think what made Loretta Lynn so unique is she just went and was herself, and she was, like, so unapologetic about it. And I've really admired her career and what she did for country music. So if they ever made a movie about her and they needed an actress,
No, sign me up. Yeah. Have you ever considered, because I don't know, because you're in Canada, I'm here in the
Mhm.
States, did you ever consider going down into like Dollywood area or Memphis or Nashville? Have you thought of venturing?
Yeah, definitely. I spent some time in Nashville when I was recording the Johnny Cash songs. And I had planned to go back down this month actually to do another Nashville trip, but I think I'm going to actually postpone it because I have to do a music video here during the same time frame. So I think I might push it to maybe the new year, so that I can finish up this project. But yeah, I definitely would like to get back down to Nashville and spend a bit more time down there, just in the music circuit, performing and getting my name a little bit more established in that area for sure.
You mentioned music video. Is this your first one that you're doing, or have you done others?
I've done others in the past with different projects. So this is my first music video since coming back. So it's my first video since, I think the last one I did was in 2016, and that was for kind of a electronic dance project under the stage name of Ayla. So this will be my first one for this project, and it's going to be a music video for the single that I just released, "Till We're Dirt." So I'm really excited about it. It's got kind of like a really unique storyline, and I think I found a really great film company here in BC that we're working together to get it done. And the director had some really great ideas of how to make the story come to life. So I'm really excited about it.
This is new about the video. So how does that process go? Did you look for them, or did you have their song? Did you look for someone to do it, or did someone come to you and say, "Hey, I think that should be in a video"?
So I had the song recorded and released, and I knew that I wanted to do a music video for it. And then I actually was lucky enough to receive some grant funding through Creative BC, which is it's a program in British Columbia that funds the arts. So I kind of scouted out a number of film companies, and entered into talks with Mastermind Studios, which is I think it's the only major film studio outside of kind of Hollywood North in British Columbia. And I just really resonated. Like, the director was great. What he said really resonated with me just on a personal level. And so I had actually already developed the storyline of what I thought would be the video. And then Creative BC was like, we love this. We're going to fully fund it. Just find the right film company. So
How do, because it's almost like writing a book. How did you develop? I mean, in your mind, you already knew that, okay, these are the words. This is what I want to do. I want to be by a river. I want to be by a mountain. I mean,
yeah.
how do you do that, or did it just fall in place?
It was one where when I had written the song, it definitely has a storyline to it. And so I had images in my head, and then I was listening to the song, trying to come up with an idea. And it definitely was one of those moments where the story just kind of came to me pretty much fully formed. And then it took, a couple weeks of like sitting down and writing and rewriting kind of a script for it, and a video treatment, which probably will get tweaked a little bit more as we actually sit down and filming, because it's a little bit complex in terms of the imagery and things like that. But yeah, it definitely came to me quite quickly of how I wanted that story to play out.
Now, you said your little one, are you encouraging him to want to sing or to want to play an instrument? I mean, you're not a stage mom. I mean,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
lived that life. Would
Yes.
you would let them just go on their own, or if they approach you and say, how do we do this or whatever, would you ever think of singing with them or making a video with them or
Yeah,
encouraging?
it's funny. My son definitely came out very, very, very musical. And I always said, I was like, I don't want him to be a musician because I love it. I absolutely love it. But like I said before, I feel like a music career can be a bit of a fickle lover. And um, there's definitely easier career paths that are out there. But my son is very naturally gifted. He has just perfect pitch when he sings. He goes and picks out things on the piano. But I've always been, he's 6.5 now. Um, and I've always been very much like, I don't want to push it on him.
Natural.
First and foremost, because I can see that creating and singing brings him so much joy, and I don't want to destroy that for him. So regardless of whether if he pursues a career in it or not, as long as he's happy, it doesn't matter to me whatsoever. But I don't want it to take away just that gift that music can be for someone in healing and creating, even if he just never does anything more than it's just for him at home. So I have a piano and I have a keyboard and guitars, and I just kind of let them have free reign. If they want to play, they can. If they ask me, hey mom, can you show, he asked the other day, mom, can you show me how to play Hedwig song, which is the Harry Potter theme? So I sat down and I showed him, but I try and keep it really short and really fun. There's no pressure behind it. He did ask to do keyboard lessons, and so I said, okay, we'll try. And he went to one and he was like, I really didn't like that. And I was like, okay. And I could see halfway through he wasn't having a good time. So I just said, okay, we'll finish the class, but you don't have to go back. So I just try and make it's very self-directed for them, because I think as somebody who is very passionate about it, it's very easy for us to see a natural talent in our child and go, oh my gosh, I can give you all these opportunities and I can guide you and you can have, but I'm like, I try to be cognizant of the fact that he needs to be self-directing if that's the path that he wants to choose. Otherwise it takes the joy out of it.
Yeah. I want to just thank you so much. This has been very interesting because I had no idea what I was going to ask or whatever, because we've never had a musician on. And I was told Ruth before you came on, I was quite worried, but this
Oh,
has been so much fun and so very interesting. And I thank you for participating.
oh, thank you so much. Well, thank you so much for the thoughtful questions. It's been really awesome to chat with you.
Thank you.
Paula, you did a great job. You don't have anything.
Yeah, no, that was amazing.
Those were. I mean, she truly is amazing. I kind of call her my my unofficial co-host, because she really kind of is. She does such a good job of just asking these questions that I was kind of going to ask that question, or I thought about it, but she asked it a different way. And that's something I really love about this format is I can have other people come on and ask some of these questions that maybe I hadn't thought of. So
Yeah.
so if you could collaborate with a dream collaboration on a project, who would you pick?
Dolly Parton.
Right. I can definitely see that.
Yeah. I think that's probably a lot of female country singers' dreams, because she's the queen. I definitely, prior to Loretta Lynn passing away, I probably would have said Loretta Lynn as well. So it broke my heart a little bit, but and she was just such an icon. But definitely Dolly Parton would be just so cool to do a duet with her. And as a songwriter, I really admire her. And then the other songwriter that I would love to sit and co-write with would be Patty Griffin. She's an incredible songwriter.
That's cool. So now, have you? I know I have a lot of Canadian musician friends who have had music featured in television and film. Is that something that you are thinking about pursuing? Have you looked into that possibility?
Yeah, so I have a small independent label that I'm signed to here in Canada. So we're looking at trying to find the right placement for the tracks as they come out. So I'm hoping that there's something that gets picked up if it fits well with the series or with that episode. So I'm hoping that that's something that could be coming down the pipe. So I guess we'll just have to see.
Well, yeah, it's because I know that a lot of my friends up there have had music like featured on Hallmark. I've got a lot of connections with Hallmark, and
Yes.
so that's actually why I first started reaching out to musicians many years ago, is that their music started appearing in Hallmark, and so, but
Oh,
now
amazing.
there's so many series that are shot up in Vancouver. So
Yes.
many. I mean, it just blows my mind. Well, and then you've got Ontario picking up. I mean, there's just so much out there. Canada, the film and TV scene is just like blowing up like crazy.
Yes. Yes.
And so, well, good luck to you on that, because
Thank you.
we'd love to have your music, I mean, as you would, but definitely we'll be hoping that in the new year we hear your music featured on a series or a movie or something. That'd be really cool. I hope that works.
Yeah, that would be amazing. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Well, Melissa, I have so enjoyed getting to chat with you. It's been a joy. You've shared so much, and I think that it's been neat to hear you share so many things. It's like, yep, I know right what you're talking about. It's like that's always neat when that happens, and so
Yeah.
so this has been a joy. I thank you for your time, and of course, Paula, if you'd like to. You were the one that came on, and so if you want to express your appreciation to her, feel free.
Yeah, I'm so glad I speeded home from Buffalo.
Oh,
I was an hour away and I didn't want to miss it. So
wow. Thank you so much.
yeah, and I'm so glad I did make it. And thank you again very much.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you both for having me. It's amazing. It was wonderful to chat to you both, and I so appreciate it. It's great to sit down and talk to people about your craft, because I think sometimes as an artist you never know, especially with online. I'm like, I don't know if anybody's listening or not. So
Yeah.
It's been great. Yeah, thank you very much.
Well,
Thank you.
well, I was my honor for sure, and thanks for being here, and have a great rest of your week.
Thank you. Thanks very much.
All
Nice to meet you both.
You too.
Bye-bye.
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 What a joy it is to be back, and Melissa's just the perfect person to bring us all back into 2023. I really do hope that you enjoyed listening to her give her story. I really am so thrilled to be back. I've missed you guys. Lots more excitement coming up. If you liked this episode, please let me know about it. I'm always open to suggestions, your comments, no matter whether you liked it, whether you didn't, let me know how I can improve. And if you did like it, it'd be a joy and honor if you would go and follow me on Apple Podcasts and review it for me. That'd be awesome. If you're watching this on YouTube, it'd be great. Also, if you would give me a thumbs up, subscribe. I'm doing some great things are coming up. So we're kicking off 2023. I know we're into February, but we're kicking off 2023 with a bang. And I am so excited. Many, many more episodes to bring. So please join my Facebook group also, because there are going to be new episodes being recorded very soon. So thank you so much for your support, your kindness. And I look forward to seeing you on a future episode of Media from the Heart. God bless.